What's up guys, Nolan here, and I wanted to talk about where I stand on the whole Star Citizen is a scam and or it will never be finished stuff, as I do intend to cover this game in the future. This video will be linked to those who bug me about supporting a scam or anything like that in the comments of those videos, but also to anyone who wants to buy in as well so that they have fair warning before they make that decision. Long story short, I will never advise anyone to go out and spend any money whatsoever on this game in its current state. Straight up, don't do it. There are other games that you can play right now that should occupy your time just fine and not be full of bugs or have no full gameplay loop. This game does not fully work and it will crash or bug out, causing you to waste your time and make you very angry. Sometimes you cannot even get out of bed or out of a chair without bugging out or literally getting sucked into space. So that's it. End of story. Do not spend money on Star Citizen right now, period. Now that is my general answer to everyone out there. However, I do know there is a small category of listeners out there with disposable income that they would not bat an eye at risking for the ability to right now fly a very realistic spaceship around a full-ass solar system to blow stuff up, even though it will repeatedly crash and annoy you, but possibly someday, maybe even 2 or 3 years from now, work as intended, hence the risk involved. And I am the kind of person that fits into that category. Another thing to keep in mind here is that Star Citizen will require a significantly chunky PC in order to run well, to the point where it is not annoying and you're constantly getting stutters. And that is if the game ends up being polished really well. So this is not even remotely a game you would run on your spare laptop, so just keep that in mind. Now that was long story short, but here is the long story. I personally have always been a sucker for cool games, and on top of that, I now run this YouTube channel where I cover games that I like. So I see some of these as investments in this channel. If Star Citizen becomes fully playable with even half of the stuff that they said they want in the game, I'm going to really enjoy this game. However, I can take that one step further and say that if Star Citizen fixes the major crashes and clipping bugs, refines the current quote-unquote gameplay loop, and adds a couple new ones here or there, I'm already sold as it is. It's not going to be my favorite game in the world, but it will be worth the money to me. You can travel from planet to planet, land on space stations or random rocks out in space, and then get out of your spaceship and fight people in a first-person shooter format. Now, when I say this, a lot of you out there might think that I'm an idiot, which I'm okay with, but the only worst case scenario I actually see happening, they screw everything else they had planned up, they run out of money, and in order to at least have something to launch, they refine what they currently have the best that they can. What that would end up looking like, I am even okay with, even though again, I think it's highly unlikely that that happens. However, if that does end up happening, will the project be a failure and a laughing stock at that point? Yes, absolutely. Will I care about that? No, because I'll be flying my realistic spaceship around blowing stuff up and going from planet to planet with it. I don't necessarily care about the developers' reputations, although if they do end up doing another project, I wouldn't be backing it, but at the end of the day, I'm just here for the game, and at that point would be glad that they just delivered something that I wanted. Granted, if that happens. If that doesn't happen, then that's a different story, and I get why people are furious about that, i.e. for the people that wanted the salvage, the exploration, the building, the large cargo stuff, basically everyone who hasn't had their stuff pop into the game yet. And you guys have a very strong argument for the whole this is a scam thing. I personally just see it differently because they've almost delivered on what I bought the game for, which is combat, which I know they have even further plans to do, but again, going back to if worst case scenario happens, there's at least the stuff that I want in the game mainly. So I personally will not go around saying that Star Citizen is not a scam, because for a lot of people out there, it actually is right now. And even if they ended up delivering the stuff that they said they were going to deliver on, they weren't honest about how long it would take, even though realistically it should take several years to do this stuff. They were baiting people with releases that would get delayed by years at a time and then keep adding more stuff on top of it. So I completely understand people's feelings with that. And that's also why you don't see any mining, salvage, exploration, interdiction, science, building, or large cargo ships in my fleet, because they haven't gotten those to a point I like yet. All of my ships revolve around combat except for the Star Runner, which I got as my all-around ship. The combat is very buggy and they intend to do more, but it is actually functional in-game, so I'm sticking with that. So again, worst case scenario for me, I have what I want to be able to enjoy the game, even if they ship it as a less buggy version of what it is now. Now, do I actually believe that that worst case scenario is going to happen? No, because I think at this rate, it's too big to fail on at least covering most of the things that they said they were going to do. What could happen though is that they run out of money in a couple years and have to cut corners, so so I'm not going to invest in those farthest corners and stick to what will most likely be fine, i.e. combat, which I'm cool with. I am perfectly fine with spending what I spent, and if the game literally stops production tomorrow with it staying in its current state today, I will be in on that class action lawsuit to sue their asses, but I have way more than enough doubt in my mind to take that risk in assuming that that's not going to happen. If it ends up launching with the cut corners, I'll be disappointed, but I understood that risk when I made the decision to back it, and I saw that money for what it was. Financial support to the devs to try and do what they want to do with a very real possibility of them screwing it up. The amount of time that this has taken is very important. When it comes to timing, I have taken my friends' opinions and information into account because several of them have been following it as closely as I have for EFT, but for Star Citizen. So the takeaways I have from this is that Chris Roberts needs to earn the community's trust back because he hasn't delivered on most of the stuff he said he would, while also having some shady stuff go on in the background. This mostly goes around his personnel decisions, dates, and delays, but I also don't like the amount of changes the game has undergone, which makes me completely agree with the criticisms about feature creep. All that means for me is that I won't invest into the gameplay involved with those creeped features. Unfortunately, the Planet Tech and other big things fall under that, but they are making big moves with that, so I'm okay there, especially since it's actually looking to be working very well. So I personally am not going to trust anything that Chris Roberts says, period, but I will instead just follow the updates for the game as they become actually playable and base my thoughts on those. Then I can backtrack and base that stuff off of what he has said about that. If it ends up being true, then he can start to earn the trust back. But for right now, I don't trust him at all. Now, even with everything that I just said, I fully understand there will be some people that I convinced to buy the game just by talking about it and showing the stuff that I'm doing. And everyone that does that is of course doing it at their own risk of having to wait possibly years until you can do what you paid for. I was perfectly fine with doing that, so I'm sure plenty of you would be as well. This all falls under the I fully understand what I am doing, I'm an adult, and I can make my own decisions, even if a lot of people on the internet think this is a really dumb thing to do criteria. If you are someone who falls into this category, please think about using my referral code if you haven't made an account before, because it'll get you a bunch of starting cash. When people use my referral code to create an account in the game, I get rewarded with in-game stuff, and I do like stuff, so I appreciate it, guys. My code, as well as what I get for referring people, will be linked below for full disclosure. I spent a few years behind the scenes in game development, and I have ran a pretty successful YouTube channel now for a few months, so I know both sides of the coin pretty well. Basically well enough to see through any development BS, as well as community overreaction or negativity. I know that bad stuff happens sometimes in game dev because I've lived it, and I know there's crazy people who make up crazy and extremely negative things on the internet because I've had it done to me. There is a sweet spot somewhere in there, which I'll admit leans towards the community in this case, that I think is worth my time and money, and I am completely okay with that. When put all together, the progress that I've seen and the communication that they've had with the community, excluding Chris Roberts at this point now, is enough to bolster my confidence and stay positive about the future, even though it will end up taking a few more years. So that's it, guys. I think Star Citizen will, in a couple years' time, be in a state that I am okay with, and that's why I've spent my money on it. All of you guys who think otherwise can just not take part in it, and hopefully you understand my point of view with this. If you are disappointed in the project after spending a lot of money on it, I personally have never been in that position, so I can't say that I know how you feel, but I do feel for you, and I hope that somehow it works out for you in the end. So unless all of this ends up failing, I will at some point cover Star Citizen as much as I do with Escape from Tarkov, just with multiple daily videos for both, or maybe multiple channels. I haven't really decided yet, as well as have my own organization in game for it. So if that is something that you're interested in, then make sure to stay tuned here. If you want to check out my current fleet, here's my video on that. If you want to see what I usually do on this channel, then you can check out these playlists here. If you like this video, then you know the drill. I really appreciate the people who do. Otherwise, I hope you at least learned something, and I also hope you have a nice day. See you guys.